Hello everybody, this is Chaff Commander Coffee, back with my next episode in the 0 AD Empire's Ascendant tutorial and overview series. Today we will be taking a look at the Persians, another one of my very highly rated teams. So let's just swap over to the Persians here and start the game. We'll have to get our basic infrastructure going, just so that we can age up and take a comprehensive look at everything. So, let's just give our workers a few basic jobs, grab some more infantry so we can get things done a bit faster. Let's build a corral, we probably will need that. Well, we will definitely need that. We'll have to get a barracks and a stables, because the Persians have a slightly different building roster in terms of how they recruit units. Right, let's go over the civilization bonuses. The first civilization bonus for the Persians is, well, it's just like the Carthaginian and the Mauryans one, where you get to corral certain wild animals. In this case, obviously this is not implemented in the game currently, so we'll have to see how good this is once it does get fully implemented, but effectively you can corral horses and camels, wild horses and camels, and as long as they remain within the corral, the resource cost of training camel-mounted units, which are your traders specifically from the marketplace, or your horse-mounted units, which are the units you'll get from your stables, is reduced by a fixed amount. In other cases, in other entries in the wiki, this has been reduced by 5% per corralled horse or camel. It may be the same with the Persians, but we'll have to see when we get there. So, we then have our second civilization bonus, which, just like the Mauryans, they have a 10% increase of your population cap. So, in a game such as this one, where our population cap was set as 250, we in fact have a maximum population of 275. So, again, a very powerful ability that I quite highly rate as far as teams are concerned. So, let's just advance to the next phase quickly. So yeah, those were the civilization bonuses for the Persians. The team bonus for the Persians is you receive 25% higher income from land trade routes for the player's traders and his allies' traders. So your entire team, including yourself, will receive 25% more resources whenever you complete a trade. So you can set your different trade ratios and goods here, and you'll receive 25% more, which only from land trade, mind you. If you build a dock and go for naval trade, you will not receive this bonus. But it's still a very hefty bonus. Like you definitely need to keep it in mind when you're playing the Persians for sure. Right, let's just get all of these buildings constructed so we can go up to phase 3. I'll speed up as well. There we are. Okay, moving on to the unique technologies of the Persians. The first unique technology is a naval technology. So unfortunately on this map, which I haven't chosen to be naval, I will not get to showcase it to you, but I can describe it to you. Hopefully you'll get the idea. So we have Phoenician triremes gain the ability to train cavalry units. So you can train, it's just like the Athenian ability that allows your triremes to train mercenary marines and mercenary archers. You get to train cavalry from your triremes, which is, I suppose you don't need to bring cavalry with you on a naval invasion, since your triremes can just support you with that, which is not too bad. I would probably prefer infantry, but it's by no means a bad ability. And the second ability for the Persians... Oh no, they have 3 unique technologies. Actually, they have a few more than that, but this is what the wiki actually tells you about. Anyway, we'll get back to that. We have Persian Architecture, which increases the health of all structures, but also increases their build time. which you can find in the town centre. It's down here, Persian Architecture. So all Persian structures receive 25% more health and capture points, but also take 20% longer to build. So you can offset the build time required by simply assigning more workers to build that structure, and all your structures will be stronger. However, in my personal experience with the game and opinion, I would say it is down to preference again, but I would genuinely say that it's normally better to just skip it, unless you find you're going up against a nation with very powerful siege weapons, like the Macedonians, for example. Then you may consider it, but generally speaking, I would normally just avoid it. The third unique technology is Immortals. It decreases the train time for the Anasia champion infantry by half. So one of your champion units are much faster to train. However, what I will say is the Persians deal with their champion units a bit differently. So we will build that, we'll build this, and then we'll get the Persian Hall as well. Okay. Right, so we've got all of our buildings on construction. The Persians do have quite a few different buildings to other nations, so we'll have to go through them in full. But we also have a few technologies to cover as well, since the Wikipedia entry does not cover all of the unique technologies for the Persians. But we'll get to those when the time comes. So, from our town centre, we'll talk about the unit roster. So, from the town centre, we have our basic units. We've got our villagers, as always. We have the Sparrowbearer, our shield bearer. These are your citizen spearmen. We have the Sogdian archer. These are your citizen archers. And then we have the Median light cavalry, which are your citizen javelin-based cavalry. From our barracks, we gain the same units. However, I believe once you've built a barracks, you can train these. I can't remember if they're actually locked to phase 2 or if you can get them in phase 1. Probably should have checked that before I aged up, but never mind. You get the Anatolian Auxiliary. These are ranged javelin citizen soldiers. The barracks also contains 2 unique upgrades for the Persians. We have Archery Tradition, which is the same upgrade that the Malians get. Those are the only 2 teams with the Archery Tradition upgrade. It gives 10 meters of range for bow-wielding units. Archer units also train 20% faster, but have 20% less health. So you get a bit of a trade-off there, but it's a pretty powerful ability for what you have to trade off for it. And the other upgrade that we have is Leve Infantry. All infantry train 20% faster, but also have 5% less health. And it also unlocks the upgrade Infantry Conscription, which is the faster batch training speed for the barracks. So you have to take Leve Infantry if you want the faster batch training. Now, given it makes all your infantry train 20% faster, I would recommend every single Persian player, or every single game you play as Persia, to take Leve Infantry. It is a phenomenal technology. 5% less health on your units is offset completely by the 20% faster train time. It is just awesome. And if you combine that with the Archery Tradition, and they do stack. So Leve Infantry will make our archers train in 8 seconds, as you can see here, 8 seconds. If we got this as well, our archers would train even faster. Yeah, it does stack. It is really, really strong. Cannot recommend it more. And the 5% health, again, it's a minor offset really for the bonus that you receive. Here we have our stables. It's a Persian-specific building, as far as I'm aware. I don't think any other teams get the stables. And in Phase 1, you can build the stables. I'm fairly sure you can. You can. I think in the first age, you get access to the Hyrcanian cavalry here. which are your sword-based cavalry, citizen cavalry. You also get access to the Cappadocian cavalry and the Median light cavalry. The Cappadocian cavalry are your lancer citizen soldiers, and the Median light cavalry we've already looked at are the ones from your town centre. I think once you hit phase 2, you also gain access to the Babylonian Scythe Chariot, which is a ranged archer-based chariot unit. I don't think we've had a look at a citizen soldier chariot unit, so I will train one quickly just to give you guys a look of it. But yeah, it's pretty good. You'll see what I mean when we get there. So here's the Babylonian Scythe Chariot. It has a ranged attack of 7 pierce with a range of 72 meters, and with a fire rate of 1 attack per second. Compared to normal archers, it gets 2 more hack armor, bringing it to 3 hack armor, but only 1 pierce armor. It is a lot faster though. So if you really want to utilize archers in a ranged sort of raiding strategy, then the Scythe Chariots are really the way to go. They do also have a lot more hit points than standard ranged. They have a lot more hit points than standard ranged units like your Sogdian archers, especially when you consider the leve infantry and the archery tradition upgrade. So yeah, I will just quickly check if this alters the Babylonian chariots, because they are technically archers. So and it doesn't say infantry archers, it does just say archers. So I will quickly check for you whether that changes the stats of the Scythe chariots. We also have 2 unique upgrades at these stables. So we have living conditions, which is the same upgrade you get at the barracks, but we also have leve cavalry, which basically makes your cavalry train faster as well, but also have minus 5% health. Now, on cavalry, the minus 5% health is a lot more noticeable, because cavalry have a much higher hit point pool in general, but it's not like... yes, okay. It's not something like that 5% health. The 20% train time really is just so powerful that you really should ignore the loss of health from that upgrade. So, yeah, leve cavalry, highly recommend grabbing that. To note, the Archery Tradition upgrade did boost the Scythe Chariots. So they do lose some health, but they do gain 10 meters worth of range. So yeah, they become pretty significant ranged units once you upgrade them with the Archery Tradition. So yeah, pretty solid unit there, the Babylonian Scythe Chariot. The other upgrade we have at the stables is Nissian Warhorses. This means all of your cavalry gain 20% more health. So the Persians have, as a result of the Nissian warhorses and perhaps something like the cavalry breeding from the corral, you have some of the strongest cavalry units in the game, even if you account for the leve cavalry. You get a nice mix of sword, lancer and javelin cavalry, as well as the archer-based chariots, and they should also get a bonus. They are counted as cavalry, so they should also be affected by Nissian warhorses. So really, you have every single type of cavalry available to you, which is pretty strong. You should definitely make use of that as Persia. And given that you train your cavalry from a separate location to your barracks, you can really up the amount of units you are training at any given time by utilizing the 2 different buildings as often as possible. So yeah, Persian cavalry, fairly solid, and the Persian infantry, the archers, are pretty strong given the increased range. The other units are made a little weaker by the leve conscription, but the training time is just great. Like if you batch train 5 of them, it only takes 29 seconds. For most nations, they would only be able to train, say, 3 units. Standard units in the time it takes Persia to batch train 5. If you get the upgrade to batch train even faster, then the Persians just spit out hordes of units at you in absolutely no time at all. So the Persians, just from this look alone, are pretty spammy. Yes, Persia, king of spam. No one should really be too surprised by that, but there you are. The other things we have our 3 sort of special buildings over here.
Yes.
I will talk about the Ishtar Gate of Babylon a little bit later. But let's take a look-see at the Persian Palace, the Apadana. This is a unique building. You're only allowed to get 1, but this is where you are able to train your 3 heroes, as well as get the Immortal Upgrade, which makes your champion infantry train 50% faster. That's right, 50% faster, but also minus 10% health. However, this stacks, as you can see, with leve infantry. So if I was to get this upgrade, the Immortals would train at a pace that is quite frankly absurd. Absolutely absurd. For champion units, they train so fast, it's unbelievable. But the champion Persian Immortals are spear-armed infantry. So they do get the 3 times damage bonus versus cavalry. So they do have that advantage. They will have a lot lower health than standard champions, simply because of the leve infantry upgrade that you should be getting, and the actual upgrade for the Anusia here, the Immortal Upgrade. But as you can see, Persia can train Immortals in 12 seconds. Most teams have to spend 30 seconds to train a champion unit. That's the default time. So Persians get these guys out really, really, really fast. And the only trade-off is they have 30 less hit points than standard champions. So as you might imagine, this is pretty strong. Yeah, it's pretty damn strong. The Immortal spam is pretty scary. And if you batch train them, they're even faster. So I could train, there you go, train 10 Immortals in just over a minute. It's pretty good. Yeah, I cannot stress enough how strong this ability is. Right, and from the Persian Hall, we get access to a few other units. We get access to the Kardake's Hoplites, which are champion spearmen. These are mercenaries. So all of these units we get from here are, well, except the War Elephant. But these 2 units here are mercenaries. So we get access to a mercenary champion hoplite and a mercenary champion skirmisher. So these wield javelins. Then we have access to the Indian War Elephant. So you get War Elephants as Persia, a full roster of armed cavalry, excellent bowmen, a mix of either your main or your off mercenary champions. These do get upgraded by the leve as well. So these do train 10% faster as well. So yeah, you just train all your units faster. All your units. What more do I need to say? You get practically everything a lot quicker, and it's like you lose a bit of HP. That's really the majority of the negative for this advantage that Persia has, is literally just the loss of hit points. And it's not a huge amount. It's not like a massively detrimental amount of hit points. It's just a slight reduction. I mean, 10% is really... When you stack it on the Immortals, it becomes 20%, but to be honest, like, 12 seconds. 12 seconds? I don't need to say that anymore. Like, 12-second recruitment for Persian Immortals. It's just good. It's just good. So here's a little bit of a look at the roster so far. So we've got our Javelineer Cavalry, we have our Sword Cavalry, which I think are actually wielding axes. Yeah, they are. But they do count as Sword Cavalry. Then we have our Lancer Cavalry here, the Cappadocians, and the Babylonian Scythe Chariot, which are our Archer Chariots. We've got our War Elephants, our Mercenary Spearmen, Mercenary Javelineers, Standard Citizen Spearmen, Citizen Archers, and then our Persian Immortals, which are also spearmen. So we have plentiful access to anti-cavalry, strong archers, a solid siege unit in the case of the elephant, excellent cavalry roster, and the only thing that we really lack as Persia is champion cavalry. I believe in Alpha 21 the Persians had access to the Bactrian Lancers, but I could be wrong there. That may be the Ptolemies. So don't take my word on that. But as far as I remember, but now, yes, the Persians, pretty solid infantry lineup. Pretty solid. Let's take a look at their heroes. We have Cyrus II the Great. His ability is 20% more attack and 1 capture for all cavalry soldiers within 60 meters of him. It's pretty good. If you're playing a very heavy cavalry game, which with Persia you more than certainly can, then Cyrus the Great is your go-to hero. He'll just make all of your cavalry that bit stronger. The one thing you do need to keep in mind though is that you don't have any champion cavalry. So you are simply boosting the attack of your citizen cavalry. Now it's not necessarily a bad thing, but given that you have access to, well, very quick to train Immortals, you may want to think about utilizing that perhaps more so than large numbers of cavalry. Though you can focus. The only real cavalry that costs metal is your Hyrcanian sword cavalry. Everything else is just food and wood. So if you've got lots of food and wood coming in because of your mass infantry spam, because you're Persia, then you can get plenty of these cavalry and boost their attack up. And boosting the Lancers' attack up and the Javelin cavalry's attack is actually pretty good because they have very high damage values. So, just because you don't have champion cavalry doesn't mean you shouldn't use Syrus. He's still pretty strong. The second hero we have is Darius the Great. He gives a 10% movement speed for all soldiers, siege engines, and traders. And that is a global bonus. So, Darius gives a 10% movement speed for all units, which is pretty good. So that counts for the war elephants as well, given they count as siege engines, so far as I'm aware. Yeah. Oh, I should probably also build a fortress. I'm probably being stupid, and I didn't build a fortress, so I can't give you a full roster. So do excuse me there. I was having a moment. I was wondering where the rest of the roster would be. It's in the fortress, of course. So I will amend what I've said once the fortress is constructed. Sorry for those of you which have been screaming at the screen like, "Chaff, you forgot the fortress." Like, well, it's being built now. My apologies. Anyway, so yeah, Darius the Great, movement speed to all your units, pretty good. And your traders, which inadvertently means higher profits from your land-based trade. So pretty good, yeah. He's got a bit of a mixed economy and military ability there. And then finally, we have Xerxes. Xerxes the First. He gives a 15% gather rate and build rate for workers within 60 meters of him. So if you want to, he's your economy hero. He is certainly the guy you want if you are going to try and boom your economy up. Because of the gather rate, more so than the build rate. But yeah, he also adds that as well, which is pretty nice. What I will do is I will train all of the heroes, because there is something I have to check. Yeah, here we go. Right. There is something I have to check with the heroes, so we'll start by training Syrus whilst I talk about the units in the fortress. We have the Assyrian Siege Ram. Now this is a special battering ram, so I will recruit one. By special I mean it just looks a bit different than the other battering rams, really. I can't remember if there's anything mechanically different to it, but we'll take a look and see what we can figure out. And then we also have, the Bactrian Heavy Lancers. So these are your champion Lancer cavalry. They're only available from the fortress. So my bad, Persians do have champion cavalry, so Syrus will benefit those guys greatly. Yeah. So yeah, Syrus does indeed boost your Bactrian Heavy Lancers, which is pretty strong. I can't remember if these guys get boosted by they should get boosted by the Leve Cavalry. So there you go, there's the Bactrian Heavy Lancer there. And here's the Assyrian Siege Ram. Yeah, looks a bit funny, doesn't it? Yeah. With that little siege point on the front. Anyway, the Siege Ram does have 30 points more crush damage than standard rams. I think it may also attack faster than standard rams, and it also has a garrison limit of 12 instead of 10. So the Persians do get a superior ram unit, which obviously, as I said, the battering ram was one of my favourite units for doing siege combat alongside the war elephant. Persia gets both. Yeah. Right. I will have to I'm going to quickly delete Syrus because I do need to. You may have noticed he has got a second ability, but I want to just check with all of the heroes first. But yes, we will quickly just speed it up whilst I wait for those heroes to train. So yeah, that's our full roster. Yeah, sorry for missing out the fortress there, but we covered that. So you get champion lancers as well, which brings your cavalry to a pretty significant number. You get 5 different types of cavalry, and you can boost their health by 20%, and then on top of the corral for the increased movement speed. Pretty solid indeed. Here's Darius. Yeah. Okay. Well, we don't need you, Darius, because you're not what I'm looking for. I think I may have already found what I'm looking for, but I'll just check to be on the safe side. Yeah. Yes. Right. So, that should be the civilization bonuses, team bonuses, unique technologies, also the ones not listed on the wiki, but the ones in-game as well, the unique technologies, and the unit roster for the Persians. I will cover their unique... oh, here's Xerxes. Aha, Xerxes, you bow-wielding guy. Yeah. We don't need you either. What we need is Syrus. Aha. Yeah. I will have to talk about Syrus for a bit. You may have already realised why. He's a bit like Chandragupta from my Mauryans overview. And you'll see why in just 20 seconds. Or 10 seconds, actually, because I'm on 2 times speed. But yeah, so that's everything to do with the Persians. You can probably guess why I think they're so good. I mean, they contain an upgraded version of one of my favoured siege weapons, including the war elephants as well. They have solid anti-cav, longer range archers, and I already said archers are one of my favourite sort of ranged combat units. They get spammy chaff. Yeah, I'm not called the chaff commander for no reason. I do like my chaff. The more infantry I can put on the field, the better. So the fact I get to train my infantry faster makes me a happy chappy. Anyway, Syrus. He can train Immortals. Yep. Syrus is a moving barracks, who also boosts the combat skills of... See, the funny thing is, he doesn't boost the combat skills of your Immortals, but he can train you Immortals. So you have a moving... You have a moving sort of barracks with Syrus, which is pretty cool. So you can just pop Immortals out with Syrus. Yeah. Not bad, huh? We're also boosting all your cavalry. It's pretty strong, So that is the full Persian unit roster. Now I'll quickly go over the unique buildings for the Persians before I start talking about the sort of strategies you might see Persia implement in a game. If you're wondering if I'm going to be uninventive and say they implement spam, yeah, they do spam a lot. I mean, that is what they're good at. So, expect some Persian spam. But anyway, on with the buildings. The 3 really unique buildings Persia has are these 3. We have the Apadana Palace. This is the Persian Palace. This is where you get your heroes and your Immortals. This is the only building you can train Immortals from. So, if you haven't got Syrus to train you Immortals whilst on the field, this is the only place you can get your Immortals. So you can't really boom up your champion population as fast as other nations can because they can get them from their fortresses. You can get champions from your fortress, but you also have to build your siege weapons from your fortress as well. However, there is another bonus to the Persian Palace, and that is the Satrapy Tribute. You gain a trickle of food, wood, stone, and metal resources. It also has a population bonus of 10. So as you can see in the top left, you may have already noticed this. My food, wood, stone and metal is constantly increasing. And this is because of the Persian Palace. So once you hit phase 3, your first building that you should build is the Persian Palace. Because you can start getting your hero, your Immortals very quickly, and you can start getting that trickle of resources, which is by no means negligible. Over the course of a game, you'll get quite a lot of resources from this building. It will most certainly pay itself off if the game goes on long enough. So, if nothing else, it's useful for that. The second building is the Ishtar Gate of Babylon. So, all buildings within 75 meters of the Ishtar Gate, you can see they have 2 crossed hammers over them. All buildings within the radius of the Ishtar Gate gain 50% increased loyalty regeneration rate for those structures, which makes them a lot harder to capture. You can also garrison 10 units inside of it, so I'm not sure if it actually acts as a gatehouse. I don't think it does. It's just a special building. But loyalty regeneration rate significantly increases the time it takes and also the effort, especially if those buildings are garrisoned, that your opponent will have to make to actually capture them. So what will happen is, wherever the Ishtar Gate gets placed by a Persian player, generally your opponent will have to just knock those buildings down, which requires a lot more resources being committed into siege weapons normally in that location for them to actually remove you from that part of the map. So it can be used both defensively and offensively. If you expand towards your opponent with the city centre and then place the Ishtar Gate right next to it, that expansion is going to be practically impossible to capture or destroy. And you cannot capture the Ishtar Gate. Can't do it. It has no loyalty. You have to destroy the Ishtar Gate. So yeah, it's a unique building.
Yeah, see?
I won't say it's particularly powerful, but it does have its uses. The third unique building for the Persians is the Persian Hall, which trains your war elephants and the Kardaki's mercenaries. You're only allowed 2 of these, so if I build my second one, just like the Royal Stoa for the Athenians, you can only have 2 of the Persian Halls. But it does get you another place with which to train your champion units, particularly your mercenaries, but also the Indian war elephants. So, what does this all mean for Persia? Well, Persia gets a higher maximum population limit. Persia can also train its standard units, all of its citizen soldiers it can train up to, well, at a base, 20% faster. It can train its archers 40% faster. And it can train its immortals 70% faster. I think you all know what that means. And that means Persia is the king of spam. Oh yes, Persia loves to spam. The more barracks Persia can build, the more it can spam. I remember playing a game back in Alpha 21 where I managed to train 600 more units than my opponent. Yeah, just because you don't care what happens to them. You literally don't. Like, if you think about it, in a map where there is a lot of wood, where wood is very dense, and in this particular sort of example that I'm giving, wood was very, very dense. Like, the forests were packed. Like, this forest would actually be out here. Like, I'm not joking, it was huge. And you could just cut wood from it all game long. Farms provide infinite food. Same with livestock corrals. Infinite food. So you have, in some maps, basically infinite food and infinite wood. So what do you do with that? Well, you train your levy. You train your chaff. Your chaff are infinite. So get training them. That's what Persia does. Your cavalry. 3 types of your cavalry are effectively infinite. So start training them, because you'll get more of them. The only thing Persia really needs to worry about is its metal. Now, its siege weapon costs metal. All of its champion units, the Immortals less so. but the mercenaries for sure, and the war elephant and the battering ram doubly, are very metal intensive. And if you do train Hyrcanian sword cavalry, then they do cost a little bit of metal as well. So Persia is quite metal intensive if it wants to get its better units. As far as its buildings go, mostly wood. The only thing that doesn't really cost just wood is obviously the fortress. The cavalry stables cost 200 stone, as opposed to the barracks, which only cost wood. So keep that in mind. You will need stone to build the cavalry stables. But the Apadana Palace, the Ishtar Gate of Babylon, and the Persian Hall all cost a fair amount of stone and metal. So Persia needs to really focus on booming its economy up and gathering a heck of a lot of food and wood, phasing up to age 3 to gain access to its plethora of champion units, and then getting a lot, I mean a lot, of metal and stone. Because that metal and stone will allow you to field more champion units than any other team in the game, faster than any other team in the game. Whereas the Malians are quite a slow build-up team where they want to focus on getting all of the technologies down, using their heroes to maximum effectiveness to reduce the costs and such, and get those technologies before they push. The Persians are the opposite. They want to get to phase 3 as fast as possible and start spitting out as many champion units from their different buildings as they can, as often as they can, and constantly be applying pressure with their faster recruit time. Really, that is honestly how I would play Persia in every single game that I random as them. However, I will talk about some more specific strategies that you will see Persia players going for. So we have Syrus. This is basically just your standard cavalry heavy strategy. So there'll be a lot of raiding, a lot of flank pushing, and a lot just generally trying to outmaneuver your opponent. Syrus is going to benefit you a lot with that. His ability to train Immortals is also quite useful if you get stuck in a prolonged melee with your cavalry, because you will be able to pop a few Immortals out during the battle to just give you that little extra edge, especially if you're fighting other nations' cavalry. So Persia could be pretty good for that. We also have Darius, with his 10% movement speed for all your soldiers, siege engines, and traders. Darius is a bit more of an all-round hero. He's certainly a lot better for team games. Movement speed is really useful for being able to cross the map with your masses of men to go and aid your allies. But as well, in a team game, you'll find trade is a lot more common. And giving a boost to all of your traders' move speed is pretty handy, especially since you will receive 25% more from your land trade routes. So that's pretty nice. Darius is certainly the most... he's the middle ground. Whereas Syrus is a very offensive hero for the Persians, Darius is quite balanced. He does a bit of everything. Your soldiers being able to move faster helps you maneuver, aid your allies, play defensively, play aggressively, and boosting your traders helps your economy. But his economy is certainly not as powerful as Xerxes. Xerxes applying 15% gather rate and build rate. You will see Persian players who go for Xerxes to really chew up all of those materials, particularly mining. Generally it's mining materials that they will attempt to gather as fast as humanly possible. And once they have done that, generally they'll delete Xerxes and get a different hero. Sorry Xerxes, but once you've got the resources, I mean, you don't need the fast gather rate, but he is very helpful for getting that particular gather rate going. Especially for mineable resources, which are a bit harder to obtain, or are certainly more contested on a lot of maps. It really does help you to collect as many as you can, as fast as you can, before your opponent can contest them. So Xerxes is particularly good for that. Especially if you like playing a game where you expand quite a lot, then Xerxes is a solid hero to pick. Very expansion heavy, but definitely your economic go-to hero. So, there's also one other strategy that I have devised myself. I've never seen anyone use it in an online game, and I'm really tempted to do a video on it. I don't want to spoil what that strategy is. It's a little secret one I've been concocting in my research and development labs down at the Traffic Commander Coffee Studios. I've not had a chance to try it out. I didn't try it out in Alpha 21. I did think about it, but I never practiced it. And it is something I want to give a bash at, because it does involve Syrus. But it's not cavalry, no. But I'm not sure how effective it would be. I would have to do a lot of testing, particularly with timing. It's the only thing I will spoil is that it is a timed-based push. That is all I will say. That is what the strategy involves. But I will keep it a secret, because if I get a chance to use it in an online game, there may be some wow factor, because it does sound pretty hilarious. At least to me, in my head. To you guys it won't, because you don't know what it is. But just to keep you interested, I do have a secret strategy for Persia that I want to try out in a game sometime. Right. I think that is everything that I wanted to talk about with Persia. My overall view of Persia is that they are a very powerful team. They get one of the best rosters for cavalry, including some amazing upgrades for cavalry. They have a very strong champion game, and their infantry, whilst being a bit trashy, it doesn't matter because you get them very quickly because of the increased training time, the reduced training time rather. So, yeah, Persia, King of Span. I very much enjoy them. I think they're one of the best teams in 0AD, simply because of the training time. They have one of the best pressure games in 0AD, for sure. As far as their other sort of bonuses go, I mean, excellent Siege Ram, which is not bad, can't argue with that. War Elephants, the two best siege weapons, as far as I'm concerned, the two best siege weapons. So, what else do you need? And the trickle resources from the palace. I mean, in all this time that I've been talking, you could probably re-watch the video, like go back to when I built the palace and how many resources I have now. You do really gain a lot when you're not paying attention to it. Honestly, it really makes a huge difference. Like, Persia gets a lot of free resources. So it's pretty cool. So I really do think Persia is one of the top teams in 0AD. My personal opinion, of course. Right. I think next on the list, if you'll just let me check, I believe it's... I think it's Rome. I think it's Rome. I'm not 100% sure on that. If you give me one moment, I will check for you. I'm sure you guys don't mind, since you are watching a recording, so you can always skip forward about 5 or 10 seconds whilst I find this. It's just, I'm doing it in order, so and whilst I have the wiki page open, I can take a quick look. So you can just enjoy my ramblings whilst I do that. Oh, come on, don't not load now. Oh, there we are. Here we go. Ah, okay, it's not the Romans. The Romans come next. The next team I will be doing, which is going to be a bit of a, not a controversial team, but certainly a team that a lot of the community have dubbed the worst team in 0AD. The Ptolemies, which is the Egyptians. Now, at least that was in Alpha 21. I don't know how much the meta has changed. But in Alpha 21, the Ptolemies were seen as kind of a trash tier team. And I'm looking forward to doing a video on them, because I honestly don't think the Ptolemies are that bad. I think the Ptolemies are pretty good. especially in team games. In team games, the Ptolemies are pretty nuts. Really does depend on what kind of map you get, but the Ptolemies can be really strong. And some of you are probably sitting at your computers thinking, is this guy mad? I should probably stop watching him right now because he's talking a load of rubbish. But just bear with me, and when we get to the Ptolemies video, which will be next episode, you'll get to hear my thoughts on them, and we can have a bit more of a discussion on what makes the Ptolemies good. So, it's been me, Chaff Commander Coffee. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.